Good morning and welcome to your lesson on Al Capone. We are going to have a look at his background, who he was, what he stood for, and what situation he found himself in America in the 1920s. So for this lesson, as with all of our video lessons, you'll need the minimum of a piece of paper and a pen. If you're working on Microsoft Word, then that's absolutely fine as well. Just submit your work through Show My Homework, please. So can you please put your title, which is in black text at the top of the screen, who was Al Capone? Make sure that's underlined. And then underneath your starter, which I can give you 2 minutes to do, is to write down everything you already know about this man. And I'm sure you'll remember some from history lessons, and I'm sure you'll know a little bit about his gangster past from your own personal knowledge. So take 2 minutes. Once you've finished, come back to me and we're going to talk about the next stage. So our next stage, now that you've reminded yourself about Al Capone, is to talk a little bit about the conditions that made him famous. Now, I want you to have a look at this cartoon that's on your screen here. This was a campaign leaflet to try and encourage people to vote for a politician who would bring in either a ban on alcohol or or to continue to let alcohol be consumed. So on the right hand side here, you've got your picture of a family. The woman's caption is "Vote dry for mine, for her future, and for the future of her of her family." So what it's doing is it's appealing to people who have families and who might want to invest in their kind of future. On the left hand side, we've got this brewer. Says on his stomach just there. He is asking people to vote wet, i.e. keep drinking alcohol, keep selling alcohol for his sake. Now, if you're thinking as a family person, I think it's quite clear who you'd vote for, whether you would vote for the wet or to continue producing alcohol, or whether you vote for the dry to stop producing alcohol. Think about where the money's going for buying alcohol. Would you rather it was going to the brewer? Would you rather it's going to the family? So what I'd like you to do is pause this video in a moment and then write down in your own words how you think this cartoon would work to persuade people that prohibition, that the banning of alcohol, was a really good idea. So pause this video now and jot down your answer to this question here on the slide. And when you come back to me, I hope you've written things like it would appeal to the family nature of the viewer, that people investing in people's future as young children is a better idea, as it will help us and help our country in the future, than paying money into the pockets of somebody who is already overweight and perhaps does not need that money. He's got a shiny hat on here, he's got a beautiful long coat, he clearly has the money, when these four may well be in more need of it. So it's about greed, and it's about of the brewer and the sacrifice of the family. So I hope you've written things like that would explain why this cartoon might work. If you haven't, pause this video once more and jot down in your notes. And once you come back to me, we're going to jump on to looking at the conditions that made Al Capone famous, to be specific, the causes of prohibition. So here you have on the top left-hand side of your screen, you've got a beer barrel here, and the two men are being watched over by a policeman, a law enforcement officer here, and they're being told to pour that beer away. It's going right down the drain. So the context is that prohibition has just been introduced. It is 1920, and it's January. This means that alcohol, production of and the drinking of, is illegal. Now, some people still have some alcohol left over, so that's fine. They're happy. They're welcome to finish that in January, but obviously it doesn't last very long. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down in your exercise book or on your Microsoft Word document this title here: the causes of prohibition were, and then put your colon. And then what I'd like you to do is just put some bullet points in your own words that tell me of the causes of prohibition. So these three sections will tell you about the reasons why prohibition was introduced. And once you've finished, you'll need to unpause this video, and then we'll go on together to the next bit. So pause this right now, jot down your notes underneath that little subtitle, and then come back to me. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to watch this video and find a little bit more about prohibition. So you've got 8 questions there that go through some of the key questions about prohibition, and I'd like you to find them out and write out the answers in full sentences into your notes. So what I'll do is I'll copy this link into your Show My Homework task, so you can just click on it and open up in a new tab on your browser window, or if you're watching on your phone, you can just copy and paste this link into another browser window. I'll pause this video now and write down the answers to these questions in 4 sentences, please, into your notes. And once you finish, we'll move on together. So come back to me now, and we're going to talk about the consequences of prohibition. So just like we did before, this is just a fact-finding mission. I want you to put this new subtitle, The Consequence of Prohibition, and I want you to jot down in your notes, in bullet points, and in your own words, please, the main consequence of prohibition. So we're coming back here to the gang culture. We're coming back here to Al Capone as well, right at the very bottom. In the top and the right-hand side, you'll see there is a headline from the Chicago Daily newspaper, which was published in 1929. This was following the massacre of the Seven Moran gang. So what happened was, it was Valentine's Day, it was February. Al Capone and his gang wanted to go and massacre his rivals so that he could have complete monopoly, complete control of the black market in Chicago. So he dressed his men up in police uniform, and they went into the Moran gang headquarters and used their Thompson machine guns to completely massacre them. So these, you can see in the picture, there are dead bodies of the Moran gang, which are lying on the ground, having been murdered by the Al Capone's gang in disguise in their fake police uniforms. This absolutely shocked many people, and it was one of the things that brought about the end to prohibition, because people really saw that prohibition was actually encouraging violence rather than proving the morals of their country. So pause this video now. Underneath your subtitle there, I want you to jot down all the consequences that you can think of. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Al Capone. So we've understood the situation in which he was living and working. What I'd like you to do is like to find out as much as you can about Al Capone. I've got some information on the screen here for you, so use that. You've got a link to a YouTube video there again, so you'll need to open that up in a new tab, just like you did before for the previous video. If there's anything else you want to watch, please do. There's a long documentary, it's a 45-minute one, which I obviously haven't copied in here because that's too long to watch for a lesson. But if you're interested, you can have a look at that too. Just search for it in the normal YouTube search bar. And what I'd like you to do is just create a fact file on Al Capone. If you're on Microsoft Word, you could find a photo from Google Images and put that in the side. If you're just working on paper, that's absolutely fine. Just write down what you know about Al Capone into your notes. I'm going to pause this video. I would like you to pause this video here so you can do that all together. And then when you come back to me, I'm going to explain you through the next section. And the next section is really the last thing I'd like you to do. So this is 2 exam questions. Now, we haven't done much exam questions together in this lockdown, so I'd like to introduce a few more so we can work towards giving you some feedback that's specific to your exams. So they're just 2 short questions, and the first one is the shortest. I want you to describe 2 problems with enforcing prohibition. This would be normally question 3 on your exam paper, but I've called it A to make it easier for you. It's 4 marks, so you need to spend 5 minutes on it, and you need to have 2 points. It's just a description. You don't need to explain your points, you just need to tell me what they were. So in purple, I've put you some sentence starters. So you can say, 1 problem with enforcing prohibition was the corruption of the police. And you could say that more police were willing to ignore the rules of prohibition than those who wanted to enforce it. So therefore, it was really difficult to catch the criminals. Another problem was, and then tell me perhaps about whether Americans were really motivated to follow the law, or whether they actually really wanted to drink. Your second question, which should normally be the next question, this would be question 5, is an 8-mark question. It's a little bit longer. So I want you to spend about 10 minutes on it. So you need to create 2 paragraphs, and I've given you a paragraph for free there. I don't want you to copy this. I want you to use it as a model to help you write your own. So the question is, in what ways were the lives of Americans affected by Prohibition laws? And your first paragraph, I've given you a sentence starter in purple there. And what I've done is I've just filled in the blanks for you so you can get an idea of what that answer could look like. As I said a minute ago, I don't want you to copy this. I want you to write out your own version in your own words. So I've said one way that lives of Americans were affected was by the rise in organised crime. This affected people positively, I've said, as characters like Al Capone made millions on the black market. However, this is the negative side of it, many lost their lives due to the increase in gang violence. For example, in Chicago, 130 people died and no one was arrested. The law enforcement found it virtually impossible to make any arrests. So here you've got a positive and a negative. You could develop this further by saying this meant that Prohibition was overturned 13 years after it was introduced because it was seen as a failure overall. There are all sorts of ways you could develop this a little bit further to get it to the top category. So as I said, this is not a perfect answer, it's just a guide to help you start your own. I've also only given you one paragraph. The second sentence starter at the bottom is your steps to writing a second paragraph. And again, I want that to be completely your own words once you've written down the sentence starters. Okay, so good luck with your work today. I hope it's gone well. Do submit your work through Show My Homework, and if that isn't working, if for some reason you can't get through or isn't accepting your work, sometimes with an Android app it's not going very well at the moment, so please just email your teacher with your work. And unless you're in my class, please do email your main class teacher. So I'd say good luck with this work, and do get in touch if you have any problems with completing it. Okay.